Oh,
here
yeah.
in 2021, we're going to see a lot more of each other. I promise you.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of us out here. I tell you, I don't hardly go anywhere now. Some walk up on somebody that's a veteran.
That's right.
It just amazes me. It amazes me. And it's just like, well, where you been? Because everybody wants to know about their benefits. Okay, let me show you where the VA admin office is. Just point them downtown.
Really cute hat for female veterans, because the men are recognized by their hats.
Correct.
Don't wear hats.
A lot of times, yeah. We recognize each other before anyone else would ever know.
Recognize. This is, yes.
Okay. It looks like it is streaming live on the page, so I'm going to try to share this. Let's see.
We'll get started here in about 2 to 3 minutes.
Now that we know everyone's on here watching us, we got quiet. Now that we know everyone's on here watching us, we got quiet.
You've already rewound. All right, and Jeff Toki, you all know him from Honor Flight Bluegrass, is asking me, I wonder if they've been on an honor flight. Have you all been? All right, Sherry?
I have not.
I haven't. I applied, but I haven't got called yet.
Okay, so several of you have not. So Jeff, I know you're listening, so there you go.
Yes, and this year, I mean, we have an honor flight that's all female. 2021, there's an all-female. Wow. There's an all-female. I know there's 2 honor flights in Kentucky, one out of Lexington, one out of Louisville. I don't know. I can't remember which one is doing the all-female, but
we're working on that one, Sherry, with Honor Flight of Kentucky. Yes.
Yes.
We're working on doing an all-female flight June 12th, which we're also, and I can talk more about this when we get going. We're also working on a Female Veterans Day bill to be passed, of Women Veterans Appreciation Day. So that would be around June 12th as well.
Wonderful.
Okay.
All right.
I think the governor gave us what, June 12th this year?
Yes, ma'am. He did a proclamation.
Kentucky.
And if anybody wants Jeff's number, feel free to reach out to me by email and I'll share the number. We're going to give the 1-minute warning and then we're going to start, okay?
Okay.
Sherry, did you go on the flight as accompanying someone else, or yeah?
Yes, I was what did they call them? Just a volunteer, and they assign you I think I got a World War II vet, and amazing. I mean, total blast from start to finish. The organization of that flight is supreme, and it's VIP first class all the way.
Oh, that's awesome. I've gone to the welcoming home. I think Marj, the first time I ever met you was at a welcome home honor flight. And it's powerful just standing there watching everyone come home.
I encourage all kinds of people to go to the welcome home thing, because it's, as you said, Michele, nothing compares to that.
No, and my boys, they get drugged to all kinds of veteran things, and they're like, oh, great, we're But at the honor flight welcome home, they were, I mean, eyes wide. It was very powerful.
Yeah, it is powerful.
All right, ladies, you ready? Because I say we get started. What do you think?
Okay, let's
go.
All right, very good. Kelly Oakley, I'm already hearing from Honor Flight Bluegrass saying hello to all of you all too. So here we go, ladies. Good evening, and we thank you all for joining us tonight in our audience for Women Who Serve. I'm Rachel Platt, the Director of Community Engagement here at the Fraser History Museum. Welcome if you are joining us for the first time to one of our Let's Talk Bridging the Divide programs. And if you're a new member to the Fraser History Museum, we salute the accomplished women on this panel. A couple of you have already mentioned our free membership. We just ended up doing that drive. We've had more than 20,000 people sign up, just so you know, to be free members. So we're thrilled to have them all. all the accomplished women you see on this panel tonight. We're going to introduce you to them in just a few minutes. We're also saluting women who have served through the years and what issues face women in the military and female veterans, and how appropriate to do it the night before Veterans Day. And of course, as part of 2020, as we commemorate the centennial of the 19th Amendment granting women the right to vote, and with our exhibit here at the Fraser History Museum, What is a Vote Worth? Suffrage Then and Now. Well, that year, of course, was 1920, but by then, women had already been making their mark in so many ways, including in the military. So we're going to do a little bit of a history lesson. One woman who comes to mind with her feet in both worlds of military and suffrage, none other than Harriet Tubman. She led enslaved people from the South to freedom in the North during the Civil War, was a soldier and a spy for the Union Army, and when the war ended, would unite forces with the women leading the suffrage effort. But let's back up even more to the American Revolution, when Debra Sampson was one of the first women to enlist, disguised as a man. When she was injured and hospitalized, her secret was discovered. We mentioned Harriet Tubman with the Civil War, but there was also Belle Boyd, who began her career as a spy and a messenger at the age of 17. By the time she was 20, she was called the Cleopatra of the Confederacy. There were many women who contributed to the Civil War through spying, nursing, or physically fighting on the battlefield. Women like Jenny Hodgers, who disguised herself as a man as well, so she could fight. In 1917, Loretta Walsh became the first woman to enlist in the U.S. Navy. She was the first woman allowed to serve as a woman in any of the U.S. Armed Forces as anything other than a nurse. In 1948, a new law made women a permanent part of military services. 350,000 women served in the U.S. Armed Forces in World War II, both at home and abroad. Women were members of the Women's Army Corps. These women were part of the first contingent of Black American WACs to go overseas for the war effort. This picture, by the way, was taken at Camp Shanks in New York. Fast forward to Vietnam, and about 10,000 women served in Vietnam. The majority of those women were nurses. They were also women officers and enlisted women. A handful of American women would lose their lives in Vietnam. Many still suffer from the emotional scars of that war, and we'll be talking about that tonight. In the early 90s, more than 40,000 women were deployed to the Middle East as part of Desert Shield and Desert Storm. It was the longest deployment of military women, with the women doing everything the men did except ground combat. Essentially, they could be fired upon, but theoretically not allowed to shoot back. But one quote I read from a female paratrooper said, "We most definitely could shoot back." We have women on this panel tonight who were part of Desert Shield and Desert Storm. There are many milestones with women in the military, but one of the most notable, in 2016, the Department of Defense opened all combat jobs to women. So here we are, ready to talk about the women on this panel who represent all sorts of different branches of the military, different roles in the military, but with a story to share. We're going to tackle it all: PTSD, suicide attempts, sexual harassment, how things have changed, what still needs to change, and of course, service to country and pride in the service that they have given this country. I'm going to introduce all the women on this panel, and then we're going to have each of them, just for a couple of minutes, tell a little bit about what they did or still do in the military. Then we're going to dive in with questions, mine and yours, so if you have them, please feel free to share them in the chat box. If you're watching on Facebook Live, put them in the comment section and we'll monitor them. All right, now to our panel. I'm going to do it alphabetically, so there's that order because everybody's service is so important. Candice Bradley is an Air Force veteran and the program coordinator for the Kentucky Department of Veterans Affairs Women Veterans Program. Marj Graves was a captain with the Army Nurse Corps, and at just 24 years old was deployed to Vietnam. Her story has been part of documentaries as well as books. And think about this: when Marj joined the military, women were discharged if they became pregnant. So that tells you a little something about back in the day. Jo Ann Orr's military experience spanned 25 years, starting with the Army Reserves and 5 overseas tours. She's now part of the National Association of Black Veterans and a recipient of the prestigious Bell Award. And Colonel Pamela Stevenson is retired from the Air Force, 27 years of service in the Air Force, the founder of the Stevenson Law Center, a nonprofit serving veterans, the elderly, and working families. She firmly believes we need to do more for veterans. She can now do that in Frankfort. She was recently elected to the Kentucky House of Representatives. Applaud, ladies, woot, woot. In District 43, making her the second Black woman in Frankfort in the legislature, along with Representative Attica Scott. We also welcome Michele Varner, who was a linguist in the Navy, now works on VA disability claims at Carl Truman Law Office. Michele also wanted to get involved with the American Legion and change the way women veterans were viewed and treated. She served as 5th District Commander and recently stepped down. We're going to talk to her about that experience tonight. And finally, woo, what a panel we have. Sherry Whitehouse, who joined the Army in 1987 and served until 1996. She currently serves as Secretary of Board for Veterans Clubs and works with the Tiny Homes Project for veterans. She was also Kentucky Female Veteran of the Year in 2017 and decked out in her red, white, and blue tonight, and we love that. All right, so ladies, we've got each of you. So what we're going to do is I'm going to ask each of you the same question and then just a short, brief bio of what all you did in the military, what led you to the military service, and then a brief overview of your time in the service. And we're going to go in that same order. So Candace, we're going to start with you.
All right. Thanks, Rachel. Thanks for having me. And thanks so much. Did I just stop my video?
No, we did that. We're going to show some of the pictures.
Oh, perfect. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
So don't be alarmed.
Thanks so much for having me. It's an honor to be with you and the audience and these wonderful female veterans. I'm so proud of each of them and just happy to be a part of the conversation. But I joined the Kentucky Air National Guard when I was still in high school. I spent 6 years in the Guard and had one deployment to Germany in support of Joint Forge. The Air National Guard paid for my bachelor's degree at Murray State University, so I'm so grateful for that.
Hey, Marj, or excuse me, Candace, switch back to your picture of yourself, because I think we've got your photograph up. I'm sorry to interrupt, but we wanted to see.
No, not at all.
Now keep going.
There we go.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And then started working at the Lexington Department of Veterans Affairs, started out in health administration and worked my way up to be the chief of voluntary service, and then was afforded this wonderful opportunity to come work for the Kentucky Department of Veterans Affairs. I'm currently serving as the legislative liaison and the Women Veterans Program Coordinator. So serve on lots of boards and talk to lots of great veterans every day. And I'll tell you, the staff of the Kentucky Department of Veterans Affairs is top notch. So I'm just really blessed to have this position.
All right, very good, Candace. Thank you so much. All right, Marj Graves, what led you to military service? And give us a brief overview, because we know Vietnam certainly was part of what you did. And that's that picture of you. How old were you, Marj, in this picture?
I was 24 right before I went to Vietnam. I told Rachel, I said, I think my mother wanted me to have a formal picture made before I left, because I honestly don't think she thought I was coming home. So that's been, you know, my picture. And what led me to military service was when I was a junior in nursing school here in Louisville. There was a recruiter that came from the Army to try to get nurses to join. Of course, that was in the height in 1967 of what was going on in Vietnam, and most of the nurses that went to Vietnam volunteered. So they needed Army nurses, and probably the worst sort of a way. I also grew up in a family where my father reminded his 3 daughters of all the things that they couldn't do versus what they could do. And I'm a what I can do kind of person. If you tell me I can't do it, I'm going to tell you, yeah, I can. So I went ahead and went on active duty in 68, stayed on active duty for 4 years as a head nurse on male orthopedic units. And in 71, I decided to volunteer to go to Vietnam, and really wanted to go over there and make a difference. I'd always taken care of male soldiers that had orthopedic injuries and amputations, just a variety of serious injuries. And I just felt like I could go over and make a difference, so I did. The majority of my tour was not too much different than what I had experienced in stateside nursing. But then 2 weeks before I was due to come home, a Chinook helicopter crashed. And of course, for those people who don't know what a Chinook is, it's one of those large helicopters that has a rotor on each end and carries cargo, but also can carry soldiers. And 34 soldiers were on their way to a 3-day R&R, rest and recovery. And it crashed right outside of our hospital, and they brought back 34 crispy critter dead dismembered bodies. And I was one of the body identifiers for 2 days. It ruined me for hospital nursing. Part of the problem was, as PTSD people often do, I chose not to talk about it. And I chose to totally put it out of my mind until an event happened in 2005. And I was, through my work, I was assigned to an emergency team. And I was given the responsibility of being in charge of the on-site morgue. Well, we didn't wear gloves back then, and when I was doing the body identifications, and every time I started getting my hands close to my face and smelling burned flesh, jet fuel, I worked for UPS, and jet fuel was all over the airport, and it was, of course, all over these soldiers too. And nurses are caregivers, and women are caregivers. We're not care receivers. And I found it very difficult. I never talked about that helicopter crash, even though I'm married to a Vietnam veteran. He's retired Army. I would not share it with anybody. And I started having issues with depression. And in 2005, I made a suicide attempt. Took 18 Ambien. Was very fortunate it was here, but it was the beginning of my war to healing. I speak all over the state. I often take it outside the state. And I'm very honest about what happened with me, because I'm a very solid, stable person, but I was somebody that I wouldn't have even known at that point. And I'm just blessed to be given the opportunity to share the story. Hopefully that other Vietnam veterans, other veterans who are dealing with PTSD and their families understand how easily it can happen.
And Marj, we're going to talk more about some of that experience and lessons learned and talking about that coming up in just a few minutes. Jo Ann Orr, tell us what led you to the military, if you don't mind, and then a little bit about what you've done in the military. Oh, Jo Ann, take yourself off mute. Yeah, let's get you off mute because we can't hear you. We got to hear this story.
Is that better?
Okay, that's perfect. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. I said my story actually started in desperation. My son was born in '68, and I found out he had sickle cell disease. And sickle cell disease wasn't treated in the state of Kentucky, and hadn't been for a long time. But finally, one of the doctors at Children's Hospital said, if you expect him to live past 10, you better find yourself someplace else to go. So not having thousands of dollars in the bank, and as you can see behind me, my mom, who spent time in the military, her words were, leave my grandson right here, go do what you got to do. So I went downtown, joined the Army, and left the next day.
Wow.
Stayed 25 between the active duty. I stayed in the reserves. I transferred from the reserves to active duty. And talking about crazy rules, when I got ready to go active duty, I had to have my husband's permission. So
what year was that, Jo Ann?
That was in '75.
We always think ancient history. That's not ancient.
No, but if you were going active duty, a woman with a child, you had to have your husband's permission to join the active duty military. I didn't need it for the reserves. I didn't need it till I got ready to go over to active duty. So,
well, that fired us all up.
Well, it fired him up too, because I told the girl that was with me, I don't think he knows my husband, so I'm just gonna get this paper signed and bring it back. And he and I had to argue about it later. Since I left the next morning, there wasn't an argument. I'm out of here.
Wow.
First things first. But we settled it. But it isn't the way he'd have done it. I joined as quartermaster. I stayed quartermaster NCO my entire career. Quartermaster, I run storage warehouses, data processing, reorder systems. I carry everything from Jeep parts, body bags, food, clothing. If you needed it in this division, I was probably the person you had to see, which was a good thing for some and not so good for others. When the balloon went up, as we say, on August the 6th, we were the advance party for Desert Storm, Desert Shield. We went in first. We had to set up landing spots, place the shower. We slept under shelters. It was so hot out there. It would start out at 25 at midnight, and by noon it was 135 degrees. Wow. And this is what we were living in. And we were living outdoors because we only had shelters where you could put your cot down and your stuff. And that's where you ate, slept, everything went around this little corner of this cot. You had that little cot area. That was all you had. And that was your acclimatization. You had to have 10 days of acclimatization before they put you on the truck and sent you to the desert. So the desert is where all of us ended up, but for the first 30 days or so, we brought everybody in, brought in all the supplies, all the water. You were given 2 gallons of water a day. Don't drink too fast because you also got to take a bath in that. So, you're going to learn the buddy system. Right, you put some aside and we'll gather this other to take a shower. So wow. We had the little portable shower where you open and close the little thing on the top of it. So you soap up and then you run your little half a gallon of water and you rinse off. So it was an experience. I was also a jump master for a while. I taught parachuting, my favorite thing. I worked in the gas chamber. Loved that too. Liked seeing the look on guys' faces when they walked in there and all they saw was me and I wasn't wearing a mask. So they just assumed. It's like, come out here with me. Okay. But from there I went, after I did 5 tours of Korea, 7 years total, Germany, Guam. My son couldn't leave country, so I could never be out of country more than a year at a time. That's why I got so many short tours.
Okay, so that explains that.
Right. Not having gone for 3 years, I could go and come back. And because of his medical, he couldn't live out of the United States. So I stayed here. Finished up at Fort Hood, Texas. I was the quartermaster NCO for the 5 Corps, and we did the putting computers in the tanks and taking them out in the desert of California and run them 65 miles and see if they hit a target. I retired right after that. After that, I got too old to be running behind these 19-year-olds at 4:30 in the morning singing, "Here we go all the way." So, it was
all right,
to put
Jo Ann. Well, thank you. All right, Colonel Stevenson, you're next.
So my family has a history of the military for the men. And when I got an ROTC scholarship that said I could go any place I wanted to go in the world to go to college, I thought it would be great, although I had never thought about it. I thought I could do 4 years. And we got in and we actually loved it. I got in as, I was an attorney, but I wasn't assigned as an attorney initially. I was assigned as a commander and in a fighter squadron. And it turned out to be a blessing. And the reason why I wasn't assigned as an attorney is because I was pregnant. Mm-hmm. And once we got through that and I became a JAG, they sent me all around the world to negotiate contracts on behalf of America. I prosecuted, it was in a court, and we ultimately looked to see what will it take for me, this is my personal stand, to make sure that women can be successful in the military, serve their country just like anyone else.
Very good. All right, Colonel.
I like that picture because that picture right there, I always tell them, let's give them something to talk about. That's about, let's give them something to talk about, look.
Now, one thing that you did, I noticed when you sent me something too, you said when women were pregnant, when you were in the service, that there were no maternity. It was basically men's clothing and you just didn't zip the pants.
You just unzip it. You don't zip the pants. And you don't talk about they give you all the rules. Don't talk about any women problems. Don't talk about being pregnant. Don't talk about anything that would have you be separate from the boys. So if you got to get sick because you've got cramps, you say you had a heart attack.
There must have been a lot of heart attacks around there.
There were.
Oh, for heaven's sake. All right.
My commander just tell them to sit down somewhere looking like you're passing out, and they know what to do for you.
Oh my
That's what
God.
my
These,
commander
these
did.
stories are crazy, from you having to get your husband's permission to say you had a heart attack. All right, Michele Varner, go ahead. Tell us what led you to service, military service, and a little bit about your career.
So I went to college right after high school. I went to Murray State too, and I had a lot of fun, and I bombed out big time. And I was like, I want to be something great. I want to do something worthwhile. Like, what am I going to do? So I came home and went and talked to a recruiter. I talked to the recruiter. I went back with my questions 3 different times. The third time I said, okay, I'm ready. I'm ready to sign up. They said, do you want to talk to your parents or anything? I was like, no, I'm not going to tell them until after it's done. So that's what I did. I signed up and went for it. And then I told them. I do have grandpas that were in the military, but no immediate family. Everybody was pretty surprised because I wasn't an ROTC or anything like that, but it made sense to me. And I thought the Navy uniforms were the best looking. So I chose the Navy. And it's interesting. There's a different bond that you have with people that you served with that's just unlike anything else. And I think, for a long time, I was only in a couple of years and I didn't feel like it was that big a piece of my life. But when I started getting involved with veterans groups and there was that same kind of bond there, it was like, okay, this is part of my identity. It's a completely different culture, and people that haven't done it just don't get it. So I found a home with some different veterans organizations and started volunteering, and then eventually, and I went to school for social work at Spalding. So I have a master's in social work, and with everything in my background, I ended up going to work for Carl Truman and working on VA claims. And I love it. Like, it's kind of a culmination of everything that I've done, and it's kind of like my niche,
Well, the synergy of that is very good. All right. And finally, last but not least, Sherry Whitehouse, tell us about your service and what led you to it.
Yes, absolutely. Rachel, again, thank you so much for putting together this panel. And wow, what a panel you have. As I look out across all the faces, just I think back about all the community service that each one of these women have put into our community, and kudos to you all. So as far as me, at 18, I was so young and naive, came from very humble beginnings and didn't really have a lot of options for my future. So my father served in the United States Army, and I like Michele, I had never done ROTC or anything like that. But at that point, I was like, I think I can do this. And I think I speak on behalf of all these women on the board. There is a strength and a connection with veterans and people that serve. And so there's something about that, in that age range or sometime in the time that you think about joining, that you really believe that you can do it and you can serve your country in a passionate and honorable way. So I went down, I was driving down, a highway in Louisville, and there was a recruiter I pulled in, and I was open to Air Force, Army, Marine. I checked into them all, and the Army said, hey, we'll let you go in for 2 years. And all the other ones wanted 4. And so I was a little bit of a chicken too. I was like, 4 years at, 18 seems so long. But the Army recruiter said, hey, we'll let you do 2 and you're out and you get some college money. And I said, hey, I can do this. I can, serve my country, see a little bit of the world. And so I signed up for 2 years. And then 8 years later, I was still in the Army. I did tours over in Germany and Korea as well, and loved the experience there. I did serve during Desert Storm stateside, did not have to go over, but thankfully it was a short war, and my name was up on the list to come up. We were starting to pack, but thankfully it was short, and we got everybody back home. From there, got out of the service and got married and raised a family. And then somewhere around 40, 45, I noticed that, my servant's heart was in desperate need of serving again. And a lot of times that'll show up with depression or anxiety and those kinds of things. So I began to seek out opportunities in the community to volunteer, and boom, as soon as I hit the veteran community, it was a massive, electricity vibe that went through me. And so then I was like, this is it. My servant's heart has always been there, and that even at 18 and serving my country, I wasn't mature enough to recognize the servant heart. But as soon as I connected back into the veteran community, probably about 7 or 8 years ago, it's been crazy ever since. I don't like to go into the things or, the eyes that I've done, but just know that I'm so crazy passionate about this community. I'm passionate about our women veterans. I'm passionate about all of our veterans, especially our older veterans. Salute to you, Marj. And and now I'm currently serving with the Veterans Club. I'm heading up the veterans program there. We are doing exciting things. Kudos to Jeremy, the founder of the Veterans Club, for finally having a male organization that is welcoming to our females and really getting behind this effort. And so I salute him every day. He is one amazing leader and founder. And so we're going to do a lot of things in 2021. So I encourage everyone, and as we all on this panel, we always come together and support each other in any of the efforts that we have. And God bless the USA. I love all veterans. I love this panel. Love serving with all you guys. So looking forward to it.
Let's go back. Thank you very much, Sherry. Appreciate it. And you can feel the sisterhood between you all. Marj, let's go back to what you talked about. And I want to ask all of you with what you see as some of the biggest issues that are facing veterans today, and specifically female veterans. When you were in Vietnam and that happened, you said, I guess I look at it was kind of with my father, didn't really talk about it a lot. You found that was more harmful than it was good, obviously. Has that changed, do you think, with veterans? Let's have you start. And then I want to talk about you all weighing in is how big of a problem is PTSD? We hear about it all the time, and you just wonder, have we done everything that we can to be treating this? So Marj, you personally led to a suicide attempt for you.
It did. And, if I'm all about life, I've never been about death. And when I think back of the mental state that I was in at that point, and that I was not, you would think being a nurse that you would definitely, reach out and try to get some assistance for it. Back in the days of Vietnam, and so I know some of the wars that the panelists have been in, there was never any type of focus or any effort to do any type of debriefing. Of course, one of the challenges for Vietnam veterans was the fact that we knew when we were over there, and we certainly knew when we came home, that there was a lot of shame in the fact that we had served in the country. Vietnam veterans got a bad rap. They told the male members to get their uniforms off, as their fatigues off, or their uniform, any type of uniform off, as soon as they landed in an airport, because. And I experienced it. I saw it. They couldn't figure out what to do with the women or where they were coming from. But they were spat on. They were called baby killers. Just a lot of negative things. But one thing I've found, and it's no different with police officers or fire. I do some training now with the fire department. People who are in a service position and wear a uniform to provide a service to our community and our country don't necessarily talk about some of the negative things that we've seen. We're supposed to be brave, and we're supposed to be strong, and you're supposed to, if you've had a bad situation, deal with it. And for me, I had two grandfathers that committed suicide. Depression was rampant in my family. So I'm just gonna, there was no way that I was going to open up and touch it about my dealing with the helicopter crash. I never talked to anybody about it until I made my suicide attempt. And I was under the care of a psychiatrist for depression. Well, 90% of the depression had to deal with the helicopter crash. But, it changed my life.
Marj, let me ask a quick question. I saw a lot of people shaking heads, nodding in confirmation about PTSD and not talking. And I guess with a show of hands, because I remember doing a program last year and I'm struck by the fact that people still don't think that the military does a great job of debriefing when people come back. A show of hands, do you all think there's room for improvement with debriefing? Oh, okay. Colonel Stevenson, both hands immediately. So tell me.
And an elbow.
That's and elbow. So Jo Ann, so Colonel Stevenson, a real shortfall still, a real shortcoming for the military?
It's a shortfall, because anytime somebody says, I'm willing to give my all for a concept that's bigger than self, so that the promise of America can be realized, then we owe a debt that we've not paid. There's no way there should be any homeless people, but certainly not homeless vets. There's no way that people should be on food stamps after they serve their country or while they're serving their country. So we've not focused on how do we transition our military members back to their communities after the horrors some of them have seen.
Everybody in agreement? Jo Ann, you were also.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And I think that
Yes.
a lot of almost all veterans that I know, there's some reason why they think someone's more deserving than they are. Like, I didn't go to combat. Well, I went to combat, but I lived through it. Or there's always something. For me, it was always my time in service. I didn't retire, and what I've come to realize after working with so many veterans is there's always those excuses. Everyone feels less than for one reason or another. And everyone swore to their country they'd give their life, and so no one is less than. That's what I want people to hear, that even if your service was cut short, even if you had a medical reason you got out, even if you didn't go to combat, or if, everyone's worth it. And there are so many, I feel like PTSD is handled and debriefing is handled better now than it was when I got out at the end of 2001. There was nothing. There was like a half sheet of paper that you checked off on, and that was that, And it was other veterans that told me about Voc Rehab, which is what paid for my degrees. And it was, I didn't learn about that from being debriefed. I didn't know anything. I got sent home and I was like, shit, that was my plan. Now what? And was on food stamps and, making nothing, working back at a daycare. Cause they weren't really, in need of Russian linguists around here in 2001,
Well, And
So-
Michele, Candice, jump in here, because with you working in Frankfurt, let's talk about a couple of the services that might be available for people who might be struggling. Then I'm going to go to, I've got like 5 or 6 topics I want to get to quickly, and I've already got people saying they want to ask questions. So Candice, give us a couple of things that people might need to know about help they can find.
Oh, absolutely. And there's so much out there. Just within my organization alone, we have field benefit reps that will do all of the paperwork for disability claims, get veterans signed up for health care. We have our state veterans nursing homes. But within the federal VA and the healthcare system, I think a lot of veterans simply just do not take advantage of that benefit. And it's out there, and it's a really great benefit. And there's so many community organizations that will lead people to that VA. But that's really going to be the biggest step, is to file the claim for your service-connected disability, which we do within the Kentucky Department of Veterans Affairs. We've got 23 regional field benefit reps that can do that, and we're doing it virtually now. But getting your VA disability so you can get some income, and then of course utilizing your educational benefits. But that VA healthcare is going to be pivotal for some of these veterans. And just think about how much money you're going to save in insurance. And plus you have all that mental health care so really they're treating the entire veteran. So it's so important to get set up with those benefits.
All right. One thing I want to ask you all about sexual harassment and sexual abuse. I read this statistic, at least 25% of women serving in the military have been sexually assaulted. 80% have been sexually harassed. Sherry, when you wrote me, you said you did experience sexual harassment. Tell me a little bit about that. And then I want any other women to weigh in who may have experienced the same thing in the military.
Yes, I did. I mean, I went in 1987, so it was many years ago. So there wasn't as many movements as there is, even in the last 10 years. So, and unfortunately, back then it was somewhat of a norm. And I really didn't, at the time, feel like that it was anything major because it was something of the times. I remember a commander pulled me out of a full formation and told my platoon sergeant that I was too blonde and too tall to be in his formation. So, and I remember that feeling of, oh my gosh, like, are you serious? I can remember, going to, at the time there were sergeants that would have events for their soldiers and different things. And I can remember being grabbed in certain spots. And I was always able to handle the situation, just in the type of personality I am. But I know for so many women, there were situations that they weren't able to get out of. And that's what I'm crazy passionate about speaking about it. And I think 80% may even be a low number as far as, our women being harassed. And then it gets into the rape issues and, other things as well. So it definitely is an issue. I think it's gotten better. But we still have a long way to go.
Let me ask you, ladies, do you mind showing by a show of hands if you experience sexual harassment in the military?
Yeah. And I want to qualify it because it's not only sexual harassment of body, but I was called in when I was a captain and told, I obviously didn't know where I was the last 3 years because it was in law school. And that if I had been in law school, the Air Force would have made me a lawyer. So stop saying you went to law school and passed the bar. Now, for something that's so easily that you could check, that someone would have the nerve to say, I didn't know where I was in the last 3 years, had everything to do with my race and my sex, because it's crazy, just like there's no pandemic.
So is there any recourse? Did you all take it? Did you take it to the next level?
I think that's the harder part when you're in the military. I was told when I took it to a senior chief, I was told, I was asked if I was drinking, and I was 20 at the time. And when I said yes, he said, then you better keep your mouth shut or you'll be captain's masted. So there would he would be fine. He wouldn't be in trouble, but I would be in trouble.
So do you think this has gotten any better, or is it still a problem, ladies?
I think it's gotten better.
I think it's gotten better, but it's definitely still a problem. I work on claims all the time where this has happened, and it's a problem for men as well.
I'm glad you said that, because harassment is it absolutely happens to females, but it most certainly happens to males as well.
And there's a huge stigma on it when it happens to a man. If he comes forward, he's gay, or if he comes forward, he's this or that. And so it's even harder, I think, for men to come forward. But I think the culture has changed to where it's more acceptable for a woman to come forward. But when I was in, it was like, wait, you're saying this out loud to me? No, keep your mouth shut. Like, that was the culture.
I do want to let panelists are saying they want to submit your questions, folks, in the chat section, and we'll start getting to those here in just a second. Let's go back to culture real fast, Michele, because I want to talk about the situation that you had, because you recently stepped down with the American Legion. You were the only female commander, is this correct, in the American Legion in Kentucky?
No, not the only female commander. I was the only female district commander for some time. There's one other female district commander now, and she's in the Bardstown area.
You ended up stepping down, and I said, why? And you said you felt you weren't heard. So let's talk about that just briefly.
So when I got into the Legion, it was never about me. It was always about, I want to make this place somewhere where females are also welcome and where people of color are also welcome. And I have been trying for years. I have gained respect, but looking around, there's no other females. I mean, you have to have really thick skin. And that's not okay. You shouldn't have to have thicker skin than you already have to be a part of the organization. And so I felt like I was, because the department, which is the state level leadership, was completely ignoring my votes and any complaints that I wrote formally and sent in. And I was going through chain of command, doing what I was supposed to do. All of it was just dismissed, no explanation. And so being completely ignored, I felt like I was not the best person to be a voice for the 5th District of Kentucky, because if I was there to represent them and I was being ignored, I mean, I wasn't helping them. So I got in front of everyone at the last district meeting and told them that I thought if they had a white male be their commander, they might get further. So,
ladies, your reaction to that she felt that she needed to step down. Your thoughts? Anybody want to weigh in?
I
couldn't even get accepted. I was gonna say, when I first retired, I tried to join the American Legion, and I couldn't even get accepted. They told me to go to one of the color groups. They didn't even.
Jo Ann, what year was that?
That was I retired. I'll be retired 20 years, December the 31st. So I retired in actually to start 2000 is my next phase of my life. I retired December 31st, 1999. And then I couldn't.
not that long ago, really.
Yeah, I couldn't get into
not
anything
ancient
here.
History
Right.
by any
I
stretch.
actually ended up with the Athena sisters, which
That's where we know
unfortunately
each other.
disbanded, right? As disbanded, I was devastated when she had to go, but I understood, and eventually ended up also going with the National Association of Black Vets.
Let
But
me ask
it
each
was
of you.
hard.
I want to do a round robin with each of you all telling me what you think the number one issue is facing veterans or female veterans. Pam, let's start with you.
I think somehow we have to get the programs to the people that need the programs and make sure they're heard. Because there are a lot of programs, but in my law practice, I hear a lot of people that I'm like, don't you know about this? Don't you know about this? And they're like, I did this, and it didn't work. Mm-hmm. So there's a disconnect somewhere.
So connection with people. Mm-hmm. Michele?
VA healthcare is great in some places. For women locally, that it's not been good in my experience. For years and years before the Women's Center was built, and even now, there was one gynecologist for something like 3,500 women that were enrolled, and that gynecologist only worked 1 day a week. So women's healthcare is super lacking, and I think a lot of problems stem from that. Also, mental health care with VA, it can get frustrating because someone gets used to a provider and then they get promoted and they have to switch providers. It's sometimes very difficult to get in. So you have someone who doesn't want to say out loud that they're ready to take all the Ambien, but they're there and they get a call back 30 days later. Like, it's supposed to be 24 hours, 48 hours or something. That's not been my experience.
Marj, how about you? Number one issue you think facing veterans?
I think the suicide issue is still, if we have between 22 and 24 veterans a day that are committing suicide, one of the things that helped me the most, and it was a part of the VA, but the vet center. We have a vet center downtown on South 3rd Street.
I second that.
Yeah, the counselor they gave me had 2 tours in Vietnam. He was the first person who said, you need to talk about what you've done and you need to speak about it and reach out. And that has probably helped me more than anything else.
The suicide rate is alarming. And Marj, there's a question for you we'll get to in just a moment because people are weighing in with questions. Sherry, number one issue?
I think number one issue is really being out there in the community and showing the veterans that they really actually have a safe place to go. We don't do a good job there's so many programs. And I know, around Kentucky, there's a lot of efforts going on to combine services and stuff like that. But, I know at Veterans Club, we're continuing to inch by inch, person by person, veteran by veteran, provide safe events where they feel comfortable to come out to. That's our biggest challenge, is not only connecting with our veterans, but giving them and letting them feel safe to enter in, and actually that there is somebody that is going to help. There's a lot of talk in this community, and that's one of the things that infuriates me the most. It's a lot of talk, but what we're trying to do at the Veterans Club is action. So,
Oops, you there?
I'm here. I don't know what happened.
Yeah, you never left. So, but you finished that thought. So that was perfect. All right, Jo Ann, number one issue?
Homelessness. I work in the streets. I'm just under the bridge last Thursday. I could not believe the people down there under that bridge. Oh my God, I thought we had no evictions. Okay, that's not the case. I've met a number of veterans. I have taken women veterans to Lexington, to Lady Vet Connect, because that's the only place I know of. If there's someplace else for women veterans to go, homeless veterans or something, somebody please let me know, because that's a nice little drive. But I don't, you say a place for them. For women, I just don't see a place here. And at 25,000 women veterans in the state of Kentucky, there should be some place for women veterans on every other corner. We have the old folks homes, but you got to already be on your last leg to get there. But I mean, you find women veteran, homeless veteran with children in places like under the bridge. I found a couple of them down there with children. I found an AWOL lady down there with a small child. She was having problems with PTSD, and rather than go into treatment because they thought that they would take her child, she ran.
Yeah.
And she's living down here instead of trying to find some kind of counseling or somebody to be able to take up that slack for her. She didn't feel like she had a place to go.
That's a shame.
So yeah, and it's a lot of it out here. It really is a lot of it out
So
here.
homelessness.
I run it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Homelessness and PTSD.
All right. So all sorts of emotional and different kinds of issues with that. All right, Candace, let's have you.
I think each of the women have identified some incredible issues that I completely agree with. One thing I think with female veterans specifically is actually identifying ourselves as veterans. So we have started within, our agency saying, "Have you served?" And somehow that takes away a little bit of the, "Oh, I didn't do enough." And they say, if you can ask, "Have you served?" instead of "Are you a veteran?" you're going to get a much more responsive response from veteran females and males in general. But for women, it's really tough to get females to claim their benefits, to talk about their problems. They are the caregivers. We don't want to get the care. So just kind of even just identifying females is huge, female veterans.
One panelist is saying, as females, we sometimes think our PTSD symptoms are due to a female problem, i.e. night sweats. The VA seems to be reluctant to admit that women have PTSD because technically we weren't in combat roles, even if we were in combat zones and dealing with combat situations. Do you agree with that it's a different level for women when it comes to PTSD, that there's more to prove because of the combat issue? What do you all think?
I agree 100%, because with my job as the quartermaster NCO, because I carried ammunition, I was not allowed to sit more than 5 miles from the front line. I followed the 24th Infantry Division all the way across Saudi Arabia, all the way up to the back door of Saddam Hussein before they pulled us out of Saudi Arabia. And everywhere I went, I was I could go 10 miles to give them food now, but I had to be within 5 miles to issue ammunition. So yeah, everything's coming down on me. We're sleeping underground at night because all of this stuff is falling in our camp. But we were not considered in a war zone.
So your,
We're not
your PTSD was just as real as anybody else's.
Is anybody else's. But and I had people, that didn't want to sleep underground at night in the big bunkers we had to dig, but you couldn't leave them above ground because you didn't know what the incoming was going to be in the dark. You had the Air Force bombing up the place, which is what they were paid to do. And then you had all the dummy rounds falling in, that didn't reach its goal to go across the ridge or whatever. So, you were in the middle of the enemy and your own people. So it was just, but for them, it was just, well, you're just quartermaster. All you are is supply. But if I go home, guess what? Y'all go home too because you don't have no way to stay.
Go ahead,
I
Marj.
apologize. I said I can speak from my own experience. When I was going through years of counseling, again, I wouldn't even open up about Vietnam. And so when it finally, a service officer convinced me to go ahead and file, this was after my suicide attempt, go ahead and file a VA claim. And I got a very small disability settlement. And granted, they couldn't go back and see, even though I was under the care of mental health professionals, they couldn't see that I would ever make any comment about Vietnam. Well, that was part of the problem. And, because I never really gave a whole lot of information until I made my suicide attempt. But, there's challenges out there with PTSD, and I don't know how it is for male soldiers, but a nurse having problems with mental health issues from PTSD.
And the harder part about claiming PTSD is that you pull your heart out and show it to the VA, and then if you get denied, you're like, your whole experience is invalidated. And so it's like you're living through that all over again. I think that's a huge reason why it's very difficult for men and women to claim PTSD based on sexual trauma, even though the trauma is very real, but they know I'm going to go through the ringer and be doubted while I'm finally getting this out. And that's another big barrier.
Colonel Stevenson, I know you had to leave early because you have to go teach a class. So I do want you to just give your final thoughts for tonight on where we go from here and what you think we need to do better, especially now with your seat in Frankfurt, because you're going to have a front row seat to perhaps make change, important change.
For me, all the things that the women on the panel have said are not just unconscionable for a nation to have homelessness that we can't resolve. We put a man on the moon. We can resolve homelessness. But when you have a group of people who give their lives and we don't transition them, we don't take care of their PTSD, we don't do anything so they could be incorporated back into the community. We need to be on the same page. There's a lot of organizations, a lot of programs, and everybody seems to be moving in all different type of directions instead of the same direction. So we could unify somehow and decide by 2025, there will be no homeless veterans in the city of Louisville or in the state of Kentucky. Some just common goals and have everybody be a part of it. And the second thing is, this work requires everyone to do something. It's not a bumper sticker. I love it when I see the bumper stickers, but I need for everybody to do at least one thing so that we can have the community and lead the way for the nation.
All right, Colonel Stevenson, thank you so much. And thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
You go give him heck in Frankfurt, okay? Really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Let me see, we've got a couple of other quick questions here. So Marj, I think you may have answered this. Somebody said, did Marj block the helicopter crash out of her mind or just keep pushing it down? Because I knew Marj very well. She always had a smile on her face and was always upbeat. So I'm assuming that may be part of it, right? I mean, the outside says one thing, the inside says something else.
Oh, I wouldn't let anybody see that side. Like I said, not even the husband who was a Vietnam veteran himself. And humans can absolutely masquerade anything that they want to when they want it bad enough. And, we don't want to be vulnerable. And that was my vulnerable side. And to be open about it was recognizing that I had to deal with it, and I knew I couldn't deal with it.
All right. So just, yeah, that juxtaposition of that. What, if any, resources are available to Kentucky veterans for financial advice? Candace, is that something, or I don't know who has an answer to that?
Well, there's lots of service organizations, of course, lots of nonprofits that are willing to lend their services. And Sherry may even know a little bit more about that. I know with the 211, veterans can kind of text 211 for certain organizations. Now, within the Kentucky Department of Veterans Affairs, we do have a homeless program coordinator that can, when veterans qualify, there's a $500 amount that we can pay out for utilities and different things like that. But as far as financial advice, that would be a community partner. And I'm not exactly sure which ones are out there within the state. Some of the other panelists may know if there's any financial assistance or advice per se.
There's a couple different resources for assistance, but they're pretty limited. But that's a great question, because as far as getting financial advice, I don't know of any. Do you guys?
So that might be a shortfall, right?
As far as like financial planning or anything like that, I don't think that there are any state, federal, or local government organizations that do that.
Now there are, some attorneys. I know elder law in Kentucky. They used to have an attorney there that would deal with aid and attendance and be able to understand that, which isn't something that we typically deal with claims. Ours are more compensation claims. So a lot of times, like elderly veterans, there are some resources like that, but there's no just pro bono services that I know of for financial planning.
Let me ask another one. Kelly Oakley says the tough times with COVID, holidays coming up, veteran community, especially the older ones, suffering loneliness and depression. Any recommendations to assist? With the holidays coming up, anybody have a suggestion? Because with COVID, it's going to be more isolating, right?
This is where we're going to have to rely on our community organizations like Veterans Club, like, the American Legions of the state. And also a really great place to start is within our faith-based organizations. So if there's something that you would like to kind of get out on the forefront, but lots of community organizations, lots of churches are going to be able to back that.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, they can go out on Facebook, go out to Veteransclub, Inc.org. I mean, we are always coming. We have 3 to 4 events every single month, getting, and there are a variety of things. With COVID, it kind of held us back a little bit, but we have a Veterans Club Kentucky Facebook page that is strictly for veterans only, and we're constantly posting daily with events and activities, especially around the holidays. We recognize the fact that this is the time that we're needed the most, so please come out and join us.
Let me ask. Oh, go ahead.
I do a lot of Meals on Wheels, dairy care distribution. My seniors, we're all friends. They call me, I call them. They have other people call me, I call them. A lot of times it's just a matter of picking up the phone, because like they say, especially on Meals on Wheels, you may be the only person they see all day. You may be the only person they've seen all week or all month. So I do a lot of telephoning. That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah, and building on that, the American Legion's doing a national effort right now for Betty checks. So I would encourage any veterans watching this, just pick up the phone and call a couple people and just check in.
All right, one more question. With the VA using telehealth appointments as one of their major source of medical care, do you know of any national plan that the VA will use for the future?
You know, my experience with the VA has been different. I've had really great healthcare, but I think that the more veterans you talk to are going to have their own individual stories. No one is the same. So with the telehealth, I know that they're doing choice, but I'm not sure of any other mental health initiatives or I wouldn't be able to speak to kind of what direction that's going to go in.
Yeah, the vet center has been really helpful to me as well, and I often tell other people about it. So they are available for different types of groups that might help with loneliness during the holidays. They're doing telehealth and also in person, so it's whatever you're comfortable with. But they're a good resource.
I want to ask one more. Oh, did you have something to say?
Oh, I was just saying for people that aren't on Facebook, because on Facebook there's tons of resources and lives and all of that, but there's so many veterans that are not computer literate and not interested in being that way. So that's where phone calls, buddy checks.
Let me ask one quick thing, and then we'll start wrapping up. And then I want to see if you ladies have questions for each other. There's been a lot of talk about perhaps naming a military installation or a military base after a female. Your thoughts on that, and who would you recommend? Who would be your first choice? I saw a list of different names, and it was most interesting to me.
Oh. I wasn't even aware of that. I knew they were talking about naming one, but I didn't know that they actually had a list of women.
I just saw people suggesting names, and I didn't know if you all had anybody in mind. If you could name one after a woman, who would it be?
That's a great question. I'm going to go with Jo Ann's mom.
Well, some people said Harriet Tubman. Somebody had said, is it Edith Norse Rogers, the mother of Whack, I think. There were all sorts of different women, and I thought that was really interesting because I don't know if there are any named after women. Are there? None?
No. None that I'm aware of.
So, well, that might be something we need to push. How about ladies? Do you have questions for each other? Something that we haven't touched on tonight that you'd like to know about each other?
Well, I think just as we're going into 2021, you know, Candace at the KDVA and all of you ladies, you know, I think, you know, if there's anything that you see coming on the horizon for 2021 that we can share in this moment to just help, you know, all of our veterans and our women, you know, do we have anything big that's coming down the pipe for 2021?
Well, I do.
Oh.
So over the past year, I've been working with the VA and SAMHSA, which is a mental health organization. We formed a task force. It is really on behalf of the VA and the governor, and it's on suicide prevention. And so we have got 3 to 4 really strong initiatives that I think we're really going to be able to push out and evaluate our metrics and see how we can eliminate suicide within Kentucky. The rate in Kentucky is at about 17, as opposed to that 22 to 24 number you hear a lot. But we're doubling down, and that's going to be one of our big initiatives. It's called the Governor's Challenge. And so we've got a task force that is absolutely top notch. Some folks and Jeremy's on that task force as well. But it's going to be some good stuff. And, you know, we may not be able to quote unquote eliminate suicide, but we can certainly do everything within our power to decrease the numbers.
It is a very troubling trend with veterans, that's for sure. Anybody else? We'll wrap up.
I know, Candace, you had reached out also. The Purple Heart Initiative is coming in 2021 as far as our military child, which I know each of us are passionate about. Each one of us serve in our communities, but we have also recognized in the last few years that family is just as important. So I know that we do have that initiative going on coming in 2021 as well.
Yeah, that's within the Governor's Challenge. That's one of our measurables, our metrics that we're going to be working towards. We're starting to look at the school application process. And what that is is the school applies to have a Purple Star certificate, and that's going to be a teacher that has gone through or is a veteran on veteran issues. And so when that child has something going on, whether it's an uncle or a friend or whoever that is military related, that Purple Star signifies that this is a safe place to go and talk about issues. So we're working on that. Hopefully we'll have a pilot school within the next couple of months.
I love that.
I'd be curious to find out how many women we have with Purple Hearts, because you really don't hear of a lot of us with Purple Hearts.
Sure.
But you've been in that same danger.
Most people don't
been
talk
in the
about it if
same
they do
danger.
have one. So who knows?
Yeah.
And Candace, I'm sorry, you're getting picked on because you're with KDB.
No, it's all good.
There were several years ago that there was this, it was in Lexington. It was Women's Veteran Unite or something like that. It was super cool. Great speakers. There was like a fashion show. Like, it was awesome. Are we going to do that again?
Well, that wasn't a KDVA initiative. It was certainly supported by our agency, but that was a community organization. And so, Sherry, I don't know if you want to kind of touch on that because you were involved in it, but there's still Lady Vets Connect, and then within Veterans Club, lots of female veterans.
Yes, and we're 2021, we're coming out, with all kinds of activities. Actually, this November 20th through the 22nd, we're doing one of our first retreats down to Kentucky Lake, women only, women veterans only. So that's one of our first initiatives out of the pipe. And we have a lady veteran that has a big home down there, and she has opened that space to us. So if we have any women, I can take we can take 10 ladies. And of course I'm going, so that leaves only 9 slots.
Are there still slots open?
There are. I'm going to take, first come, first serve. So we do have a few slots open. Please reach out to me at the Veterans Club, or, go to my Facebook. I'm everywhere. So just reach out to me, and, we would love to have you. It's all expense paid. The only thing you need is if we decide to do a little shopping, you may want to have a little cash in your pocket. But yeah, so it's one of our first initiatives, and I plan to do many more and get our ladies connected back. We kind of spread out a little bit, but we're back on the scene, so stay tuned.
Awesome. And Jo Ann, if you ever want to go into any American Legion, I will go in there with you anytime you want.
Okay.
Ladies, I want to see you two together go into an American Legion and see what happens. The only caveat is I get to bring a camera.
Okay.
Come on with it, Rachel.
They'll probably keep us from getting
We're going,
arrested.
ladies. We're going to set them straight, aren't we? And I want to
But
thank
look,
you
I have a
all.
question. What would it take to try and get some type of facility here in Louisville for homeless women vets? I only know of, is there anybody other than Lady Vets Connect?
There's very, very limited resources for females, especially with children.
Well, I can tell you this, the Camp Restoration, that is a massive, huge project in Louisville. We are we're right in the middle of that. It will be going up. Construction will be starting in 2021. There will be, it's inclusive to men as well. It's not just ladies, but I promise you that it will be a safe place for our women as well.
Well, keep me posted, because I'd love to be able to come in and know some place, because like I said, I'm out around the homeless and these people all the time, and in one place or another, either when the veterans are under the bridge or just show up. As people pass out my card like it's money, I think sometimes. So you'd be surprised at some of the phone calls I get. But a lot of time I actually get calls from women vets who are in need of something.
Right.
But
and
the
I
one
think
place go ahead. I was going to say the one thing I haven't been able to accomplish is to find a place close for a homeless vet. I have to take her all the way to Lexington.
I think we can all agree, and I think that's the one thing that's resonated with me tonight with you all, that we can do better, and we should be doing better for our veterans. I think a lot of effort is being made, but there are places that we can improve upon. And one thing, again, we talked about this being, of course, the centennial of the 19th Amendment granting, and I should correct, because one of the people in the audience said some women the right to vote. It took much longer for women of color. And of course, it's also the 55th anniversary of the Voting Rights Act. Thank you, ladies, for your service, for your honesty, for your voice, and certainly your passion for military service and what can be done to help other veterans. So I thank you for being with us tonight, and I'll be thinking of you all tomorrow on Veterans Day as we salute you. So thank you so much for your service. I really do appreciate it. And I also want to let people know about our next Bridging the Divide program. It is called We're Keeping on the Female Theme. It is Women in Charge. We're going to be talking to the interim police chief, Yvette Gentry, and Chief of Public Safety, Amy Hess, about their roles, the first two women to hold these positions in a very tough time in the city with civil unrest and calls for changes in the way policing is handled. So that should be a great conversation. We hope you'll join us for that. We have a lot to talk about with them. That program is Tuesday, December the 8th at 6 p.m. Go to fraser.org to register. We want to thank our sponsors for tonight. That's Wells Fargo, Lean Into Louisville, and Honor Flight Bluegrass. Their support is appreciated. And anybody watching tonight, if you want more about Honor Flight, just email me, especially the women on this panel, if you haven't been on one. And we can absolutely get you in touch with Honor Flight Bluegrass. If you would like to donate to the Fraser, help with our program in any way, just head to frasermuseum.org/donate. A big thanks to our audience tonight on Zoom and Facebook. We really appreciate you all being with us. And again, thank you all to all of these wonderful veterans, and we salute you. And thank you very much for your service. We appreciate it. You ladies have a good night, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rachel.
I salute. Appreciate it. Good night.
Bye, guys.
Bye, everybody. See you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
And thank you for the sweet comments that I'm reading in the chat too.
Yeah.
Yes, to all the people watching. Thank you.